Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. Appreciate you stopping by, and if you could subscribe, that'd be doubly great. Either way, appreciate you spending some time on the channel as Miami Heat are in the midst of the offseason. And there's a couple things I wanted to get to here today because some interesting nuggets that are out there surrounding the team on a few different fronts or potential targets around the team. I wanted to start off with this piece from Anthony Chang, who did a great job breaking down all of the Davion Mitchell stuff. Davion Mitchell been posting a lot of stuff at Heat camp or at the Heat facilities, which, by the way, also posting today, Kryptonian Season 2 loading. And now I'm not going to lie, that was like a little... That made me feel good. So I was happy about that. But yeah, Davion Mitchell obviously has been working out a lot, probably was the first guy immediately like posting stuff from the lab this offseason, but obviously is going into an interesting summer ahead where he is a restricted free agent. And the piece of news today, which I didn't think was too surprising, but it was great to read from Anthony, was that the Miami Heat are expected to extend an $8.7 million qualifying offer to Davion Mitchell before June 29th. So that would basically make him a restricted free agent. That means that Miami would be able to match any offers for Mitchell. Anthony writes, he says, the Heat doesn't extend a qualifying offer, he would become an unrestricted free agent. Miami would lose the power to match offers. Mitchell can return to the Heat on a one-year, $8.7 million qualifying offer. But the more likely scenario is after Mitchell's strong finish of the season that the Heat, for the Heat, is for him to sign an offer sheet with another team when free agency begins, putting the pressure on Miami to make a decision on how far it's willing to go to keep him. Then they would have a few days to decide about whether to match the offer sheet. So that's kind of how restricted free agency works for those who didn't know the mechanisms. Anthony does a great breakdown there of it for you. I'm trying to think, and the most famous case of a restricted free agent that the Heat have dealt with is probably Tyler Johnson. If I'm missing one, I apologize, but that's like the most infamous one in Heat history, where Bumpy Johnson got a $50 million offer. I believe it was either from Brooklyn or Sacramento. And I remember like when Woj, it was the summer Cat boom, same summer that they lost Dwayne Wade, same summer that they maxed out Hassan Whiteside. And I remember, I think it was Woj who was like, yeah, Tyler Johnson's probably going to get like $50 million. And we were like, what? He's going to get how much? And yeah, the Heat ended up matching it. And I don't remember who reported it at the time, but I think like the idea was, maybe it was Levitar, maybe it was Ethan, maybe it was Ira, I don't remember, but somebody reported at the time, I think, that that was like a real Mickey Arison, but like he didn't want to lose Tyler Johnson. I feel like that's what the details were back then, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. But anywho, this one, a little bit different. I mean, Davion Mitchell, a little bit more of a draft pedigree, obviously. He didn't like come out of nowhere like Bumpy Johnson did. Which, by the way, shout out. I don't know if I shouted out Tyler Johnson, who recently officially retired from pro basketball. I think he's coaching at Fresno State now. But Mitchell is going to probably enter that. It says Mitchell could also simply negotiate a new contract with the Heat for any length at any amount in free agency this summer. Miami holds his birds rights, which allows them to exceed the salary cap. So basically, Miami is in a spot where like he can also be like, if they signs that offer sheet, he gets an offer, they can figure that whole thing out. And I don't know if there has to be a timing thing. Like if they offered a match, I don't know if there has to be a day on it, if that screws up the cap at all or whatnot. But like, look, the Heat are going to be doing things via trade this way anyway if they do anything. So I don't think that's going to matter. in flux. Anthony also says that he could draw offers up to $14 million, which is the full mid-level. Now, we talked about this a couple weeks back about like what is the right price for him, like what do you offer Davion Mitchell? I don't really have a good answer for that because he's kind of in that weird threshold of like, what does a guy who's probably going to be your starting point guard, if not your six man, like what does that guy make? It's probably around $14 million. I think a lot of people have an idea that he's going to sign, this $10 million deal. Mind you, his qualifying offer is nearly $9 million. So I have a hard time believing that he's not going to get anything more than that. It is a possibility that he could get, if he doesn't like the market, but he likes the team, we could have a Caleb Martin situation where like he returns and Haywood Highsmith, like he returns on a 1-1 and then, kind of resets the parameters for next year. There's obviously risking that because I don't know if he's got enough extension. I don't know if he has enough years where that gives him almost a de facto no trade. I don't think he does. I think you have to be a 10-year player for that, but I'm kind of spitballing, to be honest with you. So you could see that if he didn't like what the offers were out there. And again, I don't know what the market is going to be because there could be, while he's not in the longevity run of like a Strus, a Martin, a Gabe Vincent, there is a little bit of tentativeness of signing Heat role guys, even though he's a starter, of guys. It's like, oh, did you do some Heat witchcraft here? Do they believe it? So will that ice the market at all for Davion? I don't know. But I imagine like, there's a possibility that he's going to get something like, I was like, yeah, it's 3 for $45. Is that crazy to think that he gets something like that? I don't think so. And even in today's NBA, like, is that terrible? Not really. I mean, you consider some of the deals out. Duncan's making nearly 20, even though this whole year isn't fully guaranteed. Terry's making 24. Wiggins is making 30. Like, it's not a terrible price for a guy like Davion Mitchell, but I do think it's going to like have a lot of fans freaking out, and I don't feel like it should. I guess the question for the Heat is, like, do they feel strong about the long-term virtue of Davion Mitchell in their backcourt with Tyler Hero? He obviously is a dog, defends his ass off. You feel like the way the shooting numbers were, because nobody respected him as a shooter, but he really took advantage of that this year. You guys should read Anthony's article. He has a lot of the great breakdowns on the stats that he has of Davion Mitchell and all that stuff and what he brings defensively to the Heat and what he means. I'll put the article and the link for this video so you guys can check it out. But definitely an interesting time that's going to come up there when this is all coming to fruition. The other piece of news that I wanted to get to is in regards to the Pelicans, because there was another report. We talked about this the other day. There was a report out of The Athletic that Zion Williamson is unlikely to be traded. There was a report today from Kevin O'Connor of I guess he's Yahoo now. He's not that ringer, but he had said in his report that there's no Pelicans untouchables. Now, it didn't seem like they're gung-ho to deal Zion Williamson, but he put it out there that everybody is on the table for them. Now, today, Zion obviously found himself in the thicket of some controversy because he ended up having to put out a statement through his lawyers denying a pretty crazy lawsuit that had some pretty heinous accusations in there. But I mean, like, look, he's coming out and saying that it was allegations of a former girlfriend. You guys can go read the lawsuit, but it's definitely not the most flattering thing that's ever surrounded him. That would surround anybody. Nobody would want to have any of these heinous things thrown out there. His lawyer came out. He says, we take these allegations with the utmost seriousness. We unequivocally deny them. This appears to be an attempt to exploit a professional athlete driven by financial motive rather than any legitimate grievance. Williamson, the plaintiff, dated maintain a casual, consensual relationship that began more than 6 years ago. Excuse me. When he was 18 years old, that relationship ended years ago. Also says she had been through multiple plaintiffs, and he also intends to file counterclaims to seek damages for this defamatory lawsuit. While the allegations are false, we recognize that these serious claims are welcome to the opportunity to prove in court. We're confident the legal process will expose the truth and fully vindicate Zion Williamson. So this is a twofold thing. One, what does Pelicans ownership do about this? Because, you know, they're pretty strong right now, and you know, it feels like they're trying to mend wherever things are with the Zion relationship, where he is with Joe Dumars. Seems like it's in a good spot, but also, what does this do to anybody who is even going to think about it? Because look, this is not a guy who hasn't, not in this class, obviously, but it's not a guy that's not exactly had no baggage off the court either. So I imagine that that's got to really, really throw some ice on whatever market or anybody thinking about this. They're going to want this settled, squashed, and put away. So I'd imagine that includes the Miami Heat in any Zion talks. Truthful, untruthful, whatever. Just the fact that it's kind of hanging out there in the ether this summer. Can't imagine that does a lot of great stuff for anybody's enthusiasm to go deal for Zion Williamson. And this is no bearing on whether I think these things are true, untrue. It just is what it is when this guy is not on your team. And it's like, are you going to trade for this? Let's be real about it. When there's already health questions, maturity questions, diet questions, all, you know, other baggage with personal life. You know, I can't imagine that's going to make any. This didn't help. If they were interested in dealing him, I can't imagine this is going to be great for that. On the other side of things with the Pelicans, there was a report from Bleacher Report. Not a report. There was one of those breakdowns from Bleacher Report. And they threw out a name for the Miami Heat that hadn't really been heard too much about perfect targets. And I think the ones that they put out were Durant. Forget the other one. The third one, I don't know if it was Giannis. I think it was Durant. It was Durant, DeRozan, and then this individual. And that was Trey Murphy III, which, man, I would love that move. I actually think, like, if you wanted to talk about, like, what's the in-between, if this is going to be a year where the Heat are trying to figure things out. Now, he has about 4 years, 100-plus left. He makes about 24 to 26 per year. So, like, if you want to talk about, like, if you wanted to throw them, like, a bevy of picks, like, you know, would they do it for clear the deck? I don't know where the Pelicans are at. I'd imagine, this is what I would say just off the bat. Trey Murphy last year, career year, in a year the Pelicans sucked. You know, they were terrible. We remember Jimmy Butler was trying to actively tank against the New Orleans Pelicans and couldn't do it. They were that bad this year. That bad. And from my standpoint, yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Trey Murphy, for the record, by the way, had a game in Miami where he dropped 34 on the Heat in that game with Jimmy Butler. He was 11-24 in that game, dropped 34, 5-15 from downtown, which wasn't a great night shooting, getting up a lot of threes. The thing I like about Trey Murphy, though, he's been a pretty damn good shooter his career. Fits, you know, on that wing spot if you did want to go in a younger direction than an Andrew Wiggins. I feel like I remember, too, Trey Murphy III and Tyler. I feel like there was some social media thing with them back last summer. I don't have the receipts on that, but I feel like there was, I don't know if they were like hanging out at an event or whatnot. But if you wanted to talk about something that skews a little younger, he's turned 25 this summer. Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. Like that's a little bit something like, all right, throw somebody who just is coming off a tremendous year, obviously on a terrible team. And I know people would get scared off by the Terry Rozier thing, but mind you, he's a lot younger. it felt like, he really, from this standpoint, got a lot of opportunity to flourish and take advantage of Zion being out, McCollum and DeJounte Murray and her. Like they were a mash unit this year, the Pelicans. My initial reaction to it when I saw, I was like, I don't think the Pelicans are going to trade him. I think if you probably look at their roster right now, like outside of Zion, he's probably their most promising player. They got a lot of nice pieces, between Herb Jones and, McCollum's, I think, still got something in the tank. And they just have Misu, who just made all rookie. So my thought would be, yeah, I'd be interested in that. I think he's coming off a labrum injury as well. I would be interested in that. But my thought would be like, all right, what do you have to trade to give him up? Like, would they give, would like Jovic or Jaquez with the salary piece, and like, what's the pick exchange there? But that one intrigued me. I was like, all right, well, we haven't heard that name around the Heat, but I don't think it's very likely. And I get like you don't, and he's also, look, he's not an all-star. This is a guy who just had a career year, but the one thing I do like about him is his shown ability to shoot, takes a good, healthy chunk amount of threes. And the Heat, the Heat really do sneakily need more shooting. So I just thought that was an interesting one to me. I don't think it's very likely, but I was, out of all the Bleacher, I was like, all right, we heard the Durant thing. We've done the Giannis. We've done the Zion. But the Trey Murphy III one was like, that's something new. That kind of intrigues me, but alas, I don't think it's very likely. If I was the Pelicans, and even if they were going to move on with Zion, like, I feel like this is a guy that they're probably like, oh, no, we're good with him for now. And they got him to a decent contract too. Like, 4 more years at like 24, 25. Like, that's not a terrible deal at all for somebody his age, especially where they're at with their salaries right now. So do with that what you will. It was out there. It was thrown out there. I would be intrigued by it, but I don't think it's very likely.